Hi friends, good morning. This is Hashmat ma'am. In the previous class, in the history part in Unit 1, we have discussed the lesson Outbreak of World War I and its aftermath. You know very well. Let me go to the introduction of that World War I when it was held. It was held between 1914 to 1918. Over 30 nations declared the war between 1914 to 1918. Let me go to the short summary about the World War I. The war was fought between the Allies on one side, which consisting of the Allied countries like Great Britain, France, and Russia. They were the Allies who fought in the First World War against the Central Powers on the other side, consisting of Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It brought about the end of the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire, and the Russian Empire. So this was a short summary of your previous chapter. Now we are going to discuss about the second unit, the world between two world wars. In this, we are going to see the learning objectives, the post-World War I, that is after the World War I, developments leading to the Great Depression. Great Depression means the financial and the industrial slump of 1929. Depression means vilai veechi, sarivu. Okay. So the next point is the unjust provisions of Treaty of Versailles. Treaty is nothing but an agreement. Versailles is a place in France, which brought World War I to an end. This treaty brought World War I to an end. But this treaty was not satisfied by the German, and the rise of fascist governments led by the Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany. So they were not satisfied with this treaty to stop the World War I. The next point of view we are going to discuss about the anti-colonial struggles. What is anti-colonial? Which is opposed to the colonial rule of one country by another. That is we called as anti-colonial struggle. And the decolonization process in the colonized world. Decolonization is a process by which colonies become independent of the colonizing country. A good example, you come to know that India became independent from England after the World War II. So here, the case studies of Indo-French in Southeast Asia and the India in South Asia, we are going to discuss. European colonization in Africa. The case of Britain in South Africa. Independence struggle and political development in South America. So here we are going to discuss about the entire world between the two world wars. Let me go to the introduction. Introduction. First you should know that what is colonialism. Then only you will come to know that how they have just colonized, what is the reason have to colonize. Colonialism, the practice by which a powerful country controls another country in order to become richer, to capture and to use their resources only, the people started to colonize. Here, the First World War shattered the global capitalist system based on European imperialism. What is imperialism? It's a political system in which a rich and powerful country controls other countries which are not as rich and powerful as itself. So the European powers were gravely weakened by the war, financially and politically. the conflict between the workers and the ruling classes that control the government became intense. So very serious, very strong. So as a result of this, fascism emerged in Italy and Germany. Anti-colonial struggles got intensified as the colonial powers were weakened by the war. As we saw in the last chapter, the crisis in the Western world had led to the outbreak of World War I. We now turn to the social and political developments in the world after the end of the war. The Great Depression, that is விலை வீழ்ச்சி சரிவடைந்த காலம். Developments in the post-World War I. What is the depression? The financial and industrial slump of 1929. The First World War, which led to the expansion of certain industries in the hope that the wartime boom would continue. However, when the war came to an end, the industries that grew to meet wartime requirements had to be abandoned or modified. This situation was made worse by the political complication which is caused by the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty is nothing but an agreement. Versailles is in France. A new war of economic nationalism which expressed itself in protectionism or in tariff barrier affected the world trade. The war also placed a heavy burden of debt on every Europe country. Here we are going to discuss about the stock market crash in the US. Stock market is nothing but a pangachandai. What is stock market? It is a place where shares of public listed companies are traded. It is a place where shares of pangachandai of public listed companies are traded. A stock may be bought or sold only if it is listed on an exchange. That is we call stock market. Now we'll come to see that the crash in the US during the period October 1929. The first huge crash occurred on October 1929. This discouraged the investors and the consumers to such an extent that more people began to sell their shares and dispose of their stocks. But there were no buyers to purchase the shares. This was followed by the failure of American banks. So the American financiers were forced to recall their own funds investment abroad. Breakdown of the international system of exchange. Let me know that what caused the stock market crash of 1929. By then, production had already declined and unemployment had risen, leaving stocks in great excess of their real value. Among the other causes of the stock market crash of 1929 were the low wages. Low salary has been announced to the people. The proliferation of debt, kadan mangidal, a struggling agricultural sector, and an excess of large bank loans that could not be liquidated. They are unable to get the cash from the bank. Due to that, the stock market crash of 1928 was caused. Breakdown of the international system of exchange. Despite emergency measures such as cutbacks, that is a reduction in amount or a number in expenditure and increase the taxation, the situation did not improve in England. So England decided to leave the gold standard. What is gold standard? It is a monetary system where a country's currency or paper money carried a value directly linked to the gold. So immediately a great number of countries left the gold standard. Each nation adopted a policy of protectionism and devaluation of currency. Devaluation, the same, a reduction in amount or number. Devaluation forced creditors, to whom we call a person or a company from whom you have borrowed the money. They were called as a creditors to stop lending. Lending means to giving. This led to a worldwide credit contraction. Thus, the defensive measures adopted by various nations to safeguard their economic interests, which led to an unprecedented, never happened before, declined, reduced in world economic activity. So, as its effect was deep and prolonged, economists and historians call it as a Great Depression.